I hear the shower running, splashing against the tile, but I'm standing in the hallway, alone. My first thought is that maybe I left it on by mistake. My second thought is that I've lost my mind. Steam wafts out into the corridor, curling around me like a stray animal. I step forward, watch as beads of water slip down the frosted glass. Nothing. The sound echoes, but I'm the only one here, right? I flick the bathroom light on. The empty shower stall stands behind the glass door, water cascading from the rainhead. Someone turned it on, but not me. I stand there, letting the humidity envelop me, an eerie hush settling over my shoulders. Even the hum of the vent fan feels accusatory. I reach into the streaming water, shut it off. My hand lingers on the faucet, my mind turning. Her face leaps into my brain. Sarah, my wife. She sometimes forgets to close cabinets or turn off lights. But she doesn't typically run showers at random, then leave. For a moment, I consider calling her name. But I remember, she's not here. She left 2 hours ago. As I drip water from my fingertips onto the bathroom floor, a memory bobs to the surface. That look in her eyes these past few weeks. Distant, empty, like she's trying on a mask she doesn't quite know how to wear. I rub my wet palms against my jeans and walk out, leaving the door open so the steam can clear. I cross the hall and glance into our bedroom. The bed's made, neat as usual, but the impression on her pillow is still there, as though she lay awake, pressing her thoughts into it. It's strange. This entire house feels like a set piece I don't quite belong in. The battered dresser, the wedding photo on the nightstand, the old guitar in the corner I haven't played in months. It's all so familiar, yet it feels like a stranger's life. I run my fingers over the scar above my eyebrow, a habit I've carried from boyhood. It's going to be okay. I say, the words scuttling out of my mouth. But they echo in an empty room, sounding false. That was my morning 3 days ago. The day the illusions really cracked. Before, I'd suspected something was wrong, but I kept my head down. Told myself I was imagining it. Call it fear or comfort in denial. My name is Jim Holloway. 42 years on this earth, many of them spent trying to build something stable. I have a job in management at a local manufacturing plant. It's not glamorous, but it pays the bills and leaves me weekends free for fishing or baseball. I used to be proud of that. Stable job, stable marriage, stable life. Then came the message on her phone. Thanks for today. You did it better than ever. I read it in the kitchen. My lunch break ironically cut short because I'd left my phone at home. I needed to grab it and hustle back to the plant. I saw Sarah's phone on the counter, buzzing with a text. It lit up the screen just enough for me to catch those words. At first, I froze. My mind was a blank slate, trying to process the meaning. You did it better than ever. My chest turned hollow, a vacuum of air swirling behind my ribs. This was no friendly chat. No business note from a freelance client. The raw suggestiveness of the message was like a slap. I scrolled up, my heart pounding so loud, I swore it would tear through my shirt. 2 more messages from that same number, and in each, references to times, places, things that left no question. She'd been sleeping with him. And from the playful tone, it sounded recent, very recent. My first instinct was to fling her phone across the room. My second was to read more, to see how deep this went. Instead, I snapped it shut, shoved it onto the counter and left. Because if I stayed, I'd probably do something I'd regret. All day at work, I hammered away at budget spreadsheets, barked orders at interns, and plastered on a tight-lipped grin whenever a coworker asked, "You okay there, boss?" Inside, I was roiling. The anger formed in flashes, then guilt, then a weird sadness, but I couldn't place it. She was the one who betrayed me. Why was I sad? I still had no name for the man. Not yet. But I had an idea. Someone from the plant. Maybe. She'd mentioned once or twice that a friend had helped her fix something around the house. She'd said he was a technician. Some guy who knew how to handle tools. I'd had to laugh at that, but now I heard her words differently. When I finally got home that evening, she was there in the kitchen, waiting. Her eyes flitted up from her phone. I set my briefcase on the table. She smiled, that polite, distant smile. Our old routines once felt normal, but that day they felt staged. She asked, "Everything okay at work?" I stared at her for a moment, searching for the courage to say, I know what you did." Instead, I mumbled, "Yeah, fine," and walked past her to the fridge. She was cooking something, the smell of rosemary and garlic thick in the air. "Dinner's almost done," she said. I opened a soda, took a swig. My throat tightened. Great. The next half hour was painfully quiet. She made small talk, about clients, about her mother. I nodded, eyes locked on my plate of chicken and roasted vegetables. She must have noticed how my knuckles turned white every time I gripped my fork. But she didn't press me. Didn't ask if something was wrong. It struck me that maybe she was waiting to see if I'd discovered the truth, because she sure as hell wasn't going to volunteer it. Night came, and I went to bed early. She lingered in the living room, fiddling with some freelance project. The rhythmic click of her keyboard echoed down the hall. I lay on my side, staring at the wall, my stomach boiling with 100 thoughts. Did I drive her to this? Am I not enough? Why him? Eventually, I drifted into a shallow sleep. Sometime later, I felt her slip into bed beside me, the sheets rustling. I kept my eyes closed, feigning slumber. She sighed softly, as if weighed down by a secret, then turned away. In the darkness, I opened my eyes, fighting the urge to confront her right there. But something about the moment, her quiet breathing, the stillness of the house, held me back. If I spoke, if I spat out what I knew, it would all explode. I wasn't ready. That weekend, I found out the man's name. Ethan Rogers, a factory technician, 35. Lean guy with a knack for repairing circuit boards. He worked in a different division, so I didn't see him daily. But I recognized him instantly. Brown eyes, short hair, that easy grin he wore when he strolled across the floor. I'd caught him once in the break room, rummaging for a soda. Didn't think much of him back then. If anything, I admired his skill. He got machines humming again when everyone else gave up. A door, they called him. Now, seeing him brought a bitter taste to my mouth. I approached him that Saturday on a day I'd come to the plant to finalize the monthly payroll. He was working overtime. Fitting, I guess. I cornered him near a stack of metal pallets. He gave me a polite nod. "Morning, Mr. Holloway." I studied him. His handshake, his posture. Everything about him was calm, ordinary. Did he suspect I knew? "How's everything running?" I asked, forcing a casual tone. "Pretty good," he replied. "Just recalibrating the line. Should be back up soon." I nodded, shoved my hands in my pockets. "Keep it up." He turned back to his task. No guilt, no stammer. Nothing that shouted, "I'm sleeping with your wife, buddy." But that made sense. Why would he betray it in public? Walking away, I felt my lungs tighten. I wanted to slug him right then and there. Instead, I went into my tiny office, locked the door, and exhaled. A swirl of bitterness rose inside me, and in that swirl, an odd sense of shame. As if his presence made me feel incompetent, humiliated. I wish I could say the confrontation ended quickly, that I told Sarah I knew about him, and we sorted it out, either fought or parted ways. But I was too much of a coward in those early days. I'd come home, see her face and freeze. Then the final push came. The text message wasn't enough. No, I had to see it for myself. It happened on a Thursday afternoon. I'd left work early, claiming a migraine. Driving home, I spotted her car parked somewhere unexpected. A small side street near the old library. She told me she was meeting a client for coffee, but this area was deserted. No cafe, no clientele. My heart throbbed. I parked around the corner, walked quietly until I saw an apartment complex. Dingy walls, chipped paint, flickering overhead lights in the hallway. Hers was the only silver SUV in the lot. I slipped inside the building door as a tenant was exiting. My hands were shaking, sweat beading on my forehead. On the second floor, half the doors had the paint peeling off. I listened, footsteps, muffled voices. At door number 208, I heard a voice that sounded eerily like Sarah's. I pressed my ear to the wood. Then I heard laughter, hers distinctly. Another voice, lower, male. I swallowed. It's real, I thought. There's no doubting it now. I didn't barge in. Instead, I waited. Part of me wanted to barge in, to catch them in the act, maybe let some primal rage take over. But I couldn't. The thought of seeing them like that, ironically, it terrified me more than not knowing. After a few minutes, I realized the voices had gone quieter, like they'd moved into another room. A wave of adrenaline coursed through me. My jaw clenched so tight my teeth ached. Step away, Jim. Just step away. But I took a deep breath and tried the doorknob. Locked. My knees almost buckled from a twisted sense of relief. If it had been open, I might have walked straight in. Suddenly, inside, something crashed to the floor. A lamp maybe. And Sarah's voice gasped. Careful, that'll break. There was a husky laugh in response. His. Everything blurred. My breath came in shallow gulps, my vision dotted with black spots. I couldn't move, pinned by the reality. The illusions I'd clung to were gone. The door rattled slightly, maybe from the impact. In my mind, images I'd never wanted to imagine came flooding. Her bare skin against his, the tension in her voice, their playful banter. I felt my cheeks flush, anger burning behind my eyes, but overshadowed by a searing humiliation. I stepped back, finally, turned and hurried down the hall, my heartbeat pounding in my ears. At the bottom of the stairs, I almost threw up. The best I could do was slump against the wall and let out a strangled laugh. Ridiculous, I muttered. What a joke. My laugh turned bitter, almost hysterical. Black humor. How many times had I told myself we were the perfect couple, or at least good enough to stand the test of time? Reality was a rude punchline. When Sarah got home that evening, I pretended to be out for a run. I sat in the park across from our house, watching the front windows. She went about her normal routine, turning on lights, presumably making dinner. I stayed on that bench until darkness fell. The street lamp beside me flickered in sync with my swirling thoughts. Eventually, I went in. She greeted me. Hey, you've been out late. I just nodded, heading for the shower without a word. Under the water, the day's images hammered at my skull. Her laughter, his voice. I scrubbed at my hair, as if it might erase the memory. I didn't speak for days. Maybe she thought I was exhausted, or depressed about work. She tried to coax me out with small talk, but I gave her nothing. Inside, I was swirling in false guilt, like I was the one who'd screwed up. As if my lack of spontaneity or ambition had driven her away. That was the story I sold myself, ironically ignoring her betrayal. Then I found the most damning evidence of all. An exchange on her phone about meeting somewhere discreet, along with a reference to your place. The same building I'd visited. She typed, just be careful. Jim can't find out. A single line. Her caution. Her fear of me discovering the truth. That was enough for me. We were in the kitchen again. She set down a glass of wine, took a sip, eyes scanning my face. Is something bothering you? She asked quietly, brushing her chestnut hair aside. I looked at her. This woman I married, who used to be open and gentle, now seemed like a stranger. I felt compelled to test the waters. I need a break, I said, ignoring her question. Something to shake things up. She blinked. What do you mean? I folded my arms, leaning against the counter. I was thinking we should get matching tattoos. Her lips parted. She let out a soft, incredulous laugh. A tattoo? That's sudden. Why not? I said, forcing a casual shrug. We've been married how long? And we haven't done anything spontaneous in years. Let's do it. She studied me, uncertain. What kind of tattoo? I cast a glance at the window, where twilight was settling over the yard. A single word. Fidelity. Or maybe loyalty. Something that represents us. She set her wineglass down with a click. Her eyes darted away, betraying her tension. You're serious? Yes. I almost smirked at her discomfort. She was suspecting a trick. And maybe it was. If she agreed, she'd be branding her skin with a word she'd already trashed behind my back. We booked an appointment the next week. She didn't argue after that first question. Maybe she was trying to quell her own guilt by showing compliance. Trying to prove she was still invested. At the tattoo parlor, I noticed how her fingers trembled when she signed the consent form. She chose her wrist. When the needle started buzzing, she winced, biting her lip. A wave of satisfaction rolled through me. Not a proud feeling, but I wasn't in a proud place. Our inking took about 40 minutes. Hers spelled fidelity in a delicate script. I pretended to be calm, but inside, I was seething with black humor. She'd brand that word on her skin. Forever. Could she still look at it when she lay in Ethan's arms? On the drive home, we sat in silence. She occasionally cradled her wrist, swallowing a groan when the fresh ink stung. Maybe she wanted me to comfort her. I didn't. Time passed in a haze. On the surface, we carried on like normal. I went to work, she dealt with clients. But every interaction felt staged, like a scene from a terrible play. In my chest, a slow-burning anger rage. She continued seeing him, no doubt. She tried hiding it better. I pretended not to notice. My coworkers, if they suspected anything, never let on. I functioned on autopilot, mechanical, detached. Then one evening I came home earlier than usual and found her test kit, the kind you use for ancestry or paternity. She'd left the DNA results on the coffee table. That was the final straw. It wasn't for me. No, it was definitely hers. But why? Was she checking if a child we'd never had was his? Or maybe she was verifying something else. The letter was from a lab. My pulse spiked as I snatched it up, scanning the fine print. Confusion tumbled over me. It wasn't a paternity test for a current pregnancy. It looked more like a test to see if there was any genetic predisposition to something. But the point was the same. She kept me in the dark about it, quietly doing it on her own. Another secret. I heard the front door, and there she was, stepping into the living room, spotting me with the envelope. Our eyes locked. A flicker of alarm crossed her face. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. I held up the papers, expecting something. She swallowed hard. Her wrist, still healing from the tattoo, twitched at her side. I just wanted to understand my background. My mother said something. You didn't tell me. She hesitated, looking cornered. I didn't think you'd be interested. I shook my head slowly, letting the tension coil around us. My voice was calm, too calm. I'm always interested in what happens in my own house, Sarah. Her lips parted, but she had no defense. The silence pressed down on us until she said, Look, it's nothing that concerns you. I just needed to do it. That's an interesting choice of words, I murmured. She glanced at the floor. Something sparked in her eyes. Guilt, fear, maybe regret. And for a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. People ask me, why didn't you pack up and leave? Or, why not confront her, demand a divorce? The honest answer, pride. A twisted part of me refused to go out like a chump. I'd spent my life building a reputation as the reliable one, the steady pillar who never cracked. The idea of a scandal, or of letting neighbors gossip about how my wife cheated on me, was unbearable. But the day came when I knew I couldn't keep living in that limbo. It was 2 weeks after the DNA envelope fiasco. I was at work, reviewing some shift schedules in my office. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I opened it. A single photo of Sarah stepping out of Ethan's car, both of them smiling, leaning close. My heart lurched. Who sent it? Probably some well-meaning coworker who suspected. Or maybe a jerk stirring up drama. Didn't matter. The photo, time-stamped just an hour earlier, told me she was with him again. I closed my laptop, took a long, deep breath, and walked out of the building. I drove, not aimlessly, but with a destination in mind. An old tattoo parlor on the outskirts of town. The same one we'd visited. The place was deserted at midday. The artist recognized me, asked if something was wrong with the fresh ink. I said no, just needed to think. I found myself in the back alley, sitting on a cracked wooden crate, staring at the Fidelity scrawled on my bicep. Anger roiled inside me. This brand on my skin. What was it? A vow of loyalty to someone who'd stomped on it. The joke was on me, wasn't it? That's when a plan began forming. A dark, cold clarity. I thought about how Sarah's eyes darted in fear when I mentioned the possibility of going public. She dreaded scandal. Her relationship with Ethan existed in shadows. She never wanted it exposed to the light. Maybe my revenge wasn't about violence or throwing her out. Maybe it was about letting her secrets surface, slowly, in a way she couldn't control. That night, I confronted her. In a sense, she came home, saw me at the dining table with a manila folder stuffed with printed photos, screenshots, text records I'd compiled, the picture from the unknown text. She froze. I offered her no greeting, just opened the folder and let her see the top image. Her stepping out of Ethan's car, his hand on her lower back, her face drained of color. She reached for a chair, missed, and stumbled. Where did you get that? I shrugged. Does it matter? She stared at me, wrists trembling, a wave of panic in her eyes. I lifted another page, a text conversation, lines of heated messages. You did it better than ever, I quoted softly. Jim, I can explain. I let out a short, scornful laugh. Explain what? That you gave up on us, and found a replacement in some cheap technician. That's hardly a puzzle. She swallowed, tears sliding into her voice. It just happened. I didn't mean to. I slammed the folder shut, the sound jolting the air. Don't you dare insult me with that. You meant to keep it hidden. You meant to brand your wrist with a lie. I pointed at her tattoo, now mostly healed. And I watched you squirm under that needle, wondering if I already knew. She said nothing, tears glistening at the edges of her eyes. Finally, I stood, meeting her gaze. So here's how it goes. You're done with him, or I take these photos and show them to your mother, your friends, my coworkers, everyone in this entire county if I must. I'll file for divorce, and I'll tell them exactly why. No sugarcoating. Sarah wiped at her cheeks, looking more terrified than I'd ever seen her. Jim, please, spare me, I snapped, my voice shaking with quiet rage. You don't get to beg now. I don't want your apology, because you don't even care about me. You care about your image, your reputation. She tried to compose herself. Okay, I'll end it. I'll stop. I glared at her. Why should I believe you? She opened her mouth, then closed it, stumbling over her words. Finally, she managed. Because I know I messed up. I know I can't fix it overnight. But I'll do anything. Anything not to. She broke off, burying her face in her hands. For a split second, I tasted the bitterness of it all. The woman I once loved, reduced to this whimpering figure, begging me to keep her secret. I thought I'd find satisfaction in seeing her so frightened, but I didn't. Maybe I'd changed, or maybe I was too shattered to rejoice. She ended it, or so she said. I believed her about half. She seemed truly shaken by my threat, and I guessed that was enough to keep her from sneaking off for a while. She deactivated her social media pages, claimed she needed time away from all that chaos. But was I satisfied? Not exactly. I'd spent weeks wanting revenge, wanting her to squirm. Now that I had it, I was just exhausted. Days blended into nights. She tiptoed around me, trying to gauge my mood. I kept to myself, still haunted by that guilt, twisted as it was. I started calling it my false guilt, an echo from somewhere deep in my psyche that insisted I must be to blame. I tried to laugh it off, telling myself it was pure nonsense. But old insecurities die hard. We live like strangers in our own home. The tension was suffocating. The fidelity on her wrist, ironically bright in fresh ink, seemed to mock both of us. When I caught her glancing at it, she'd rub it like it burned. One evening, I got a text from Ethan's number. My phone must have been shared with some contact. Someone had passed it on to him. The message was simple. I want to talk. I stared at it for a long moment, considering. Curiosity overcame me. I stepped outside, the night air cool on my face, and dialed. He answered, voice low. Mr. Holloway. I said nothing. He exhaled. Look, I know it's messed up. Whatever you're planning, can we talk this out? I never wanted to ruin your life. A laugh escaped me, more a bitter bark. You think talking will solve this? My life's not your puzzle to fix. There was a pause. Then, I'm sorry. I clicked the phone off. Let him hang in that silence, but I paced around the yard after that, a new fury brewing. I never wanted to hear him apologize. I wanted him to vanish from my existence. The next day, I walked into the plant and found a resignation note on my desk. Ethan's, effective immediately. My guess was that either management discovered something or, more likely, he wanted to skip town to avoid the fallout. Good. That left Sarah and me in a house of stale air and fraying connections. She tiptoed around, cooking dinner, trying to be warm, but every attempt felt half-hearted. I'd stare at her from across the table, feeling like I was watching someone else's life. The old me was gone. This man with anger simmering behind his eyes felt new and dangerous. She tried one last big gesture. Let's go away, Jim. A trip somewhere. Just the two of us. I almost found it funny. She must have been desperate, hoping a romantic getaway would patch the cracks. I declined, said I had a work project. She didn't push it. Meanwhile, I started seeing the glimmer of my own transformation. The more I realized how thoroughly I'd been broken, the more I felt a strange strength rising. I no longer feared the scandal. I no longer cared if people knew or whispered behind my back. My pride had been an empty shell that crumbled anyway. So what if the neighbors guessed she'd cheated? I had survived the worst of it already. I don't recall the exact day I made the final decision. I just know I woke up, stared at the ceiling, and thought, enough. Sarah was in the shower, this time, actually in it. I heard the water running, her hum drifting through the closed door. My ring felt heavy on my finger, so I pulled it off, set it on the nightstand, and got dressed. When she came out, towel wrapped around her, hair dripping, I was seated on the edge of the bed, fiddling with that ring in my hand. She gave me a tentative look. Jim. I stood, faced her. I saw her eyes flick to my empty ring finger. I'm leaving, Sarah, I said softly. I'm done. She hugged the towel to her chest, as though it might shield her from the blow. You said you wouldn't. I know what I said, but I've realized I can't pretend anymore. Her face crumpled. Don't do this. I exhaled a shaky breath. Oddly enough, I felt a pang of pity. She looked so small, so desperate. But pity wasn't enough to fix the wreckage. It's over, I repeated. I'm not going to run around telling the world you're a cheat. That's your burden to carry. But I won't share my bed with a liar. She stepped forward, tears in her eyes. Jim, I'll do anything. I'll prove it to you. I shook my head. Don't degrade yourself. We're past that. The next words out of my mouth surprised even me. I forgive you. She froze, blinking. What? A hollow laugh left my chest. I forgive you, but I can't be with you. She reached out to grab my arm, her own wrist, marked with Fidelity, shaking. I pulled away gently, setting the ring in her hand. For a moment, time slowed. Her tears fell onto the silver band, and I felt a swirl of contradictory emotions. Heartbreak, sorrow, relief. Then I walked to the door, not looking back. I left her there, with that brand on her skin and those tears in her eyes. The next weeks were surreal. Moved in with a buddy for a while. My parents called, concerned. Sarah tried messaging me, but I mostly ignored her. The final blow had been struck. A lawyer contact helped me file the initial paperwork. I wasn't out for blood. I just wanted a clean break. The scandal she feared never erupted publicly. If it drifted around in whispers, I didn't care. She could handle it however she wanted. It's strange how being broken can reveal a stronger core. In that final confrontation, I realized I wasn't going to die from her betrayal. I wasn't going to wither away in shame. Instead, I saw how flimsy my old illusions were. Losing them set me free. I started focusing on what I cared about, fishing on weekends, talking to my sister, planning to switch jobs. Freed from the weight of pretending, I felt more alive than I had in years. Sometimes, I still imagine her, the guilt etched on her face, the tearful eyes, the tat on her wrist. Maybe she regrets it all. Maybe not. That's not my burden anymore. I remember the first morning in my new apartment, the water from the shower streaming as I stepped in. No illusions, no ghosts. I tilted my face into the spray, letting it wash over me, hot and steady. My mind drifted to the day I had found the shower running while I stood alone in the hallway. That memory felt like someone else's life. Stepping out, I caught my reflection in the mirror. I saw a man with short, sandy brown hair flecked with gray. Tired lines around the eyes, sure, but also a harder set to the jaw. I brushed my scared eyebrow, a relic of childhood. And I laughed, softly, but not with bitterness this time. More like acceptance, maybe even a hint of dark humor. Because I'd been destroyed, but here I was, still on my own 2 feet. It was both ridiculous and empowering, how that ordeal had shaped me. She stayed below, clinging to her illusions, to the fear of being judged. Meanwhile, I found a new clarity. The man in the mirror was older, maybe a touch more cynical, but he was free. I got dressed, dried my hair, and brewed some coffee. My old ring sat on a shelf, tarnished from disuse. I didn't pick it up, didn't need to. I had no more illusions to protect, no more secrets to keep. I just had the morning sun through the window and a sense that finally I was standing on solid ground. And that was enough.